I'd like to welcome members and guests to the Cities and Counties Subcommittee of the Standing Committee on Local Government. Good afternoon. The committee will be in order. Ms. Anderson, please call the roll.
Representative Alexander. Representative Hale. Representative Holzclaw. Representative McKenzie. Here. Representative Slater. Here. Representative Wright. Here. Chairman Crawford. Present. Chairman Moon.
Present.
Chairman Moon, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And at this time, are there any announcements or personal orders? At this time, I would like to recognize the committee staff. Legislative Assistant Cassie Anderson, our attorney to my left, your right, Doug Garrett, our research analyst, Ryan Baird, Sergeant at Arms for today, the legend, Bobby Trotter, and Terry Van Treese. We have new members on the committee, Representative Alexander, Representative Hale, Chairman Holzclaw, Representative McKenzie, and Representative Slater. Returning members are Chairman Crawford and Vice Chairman David Wright. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and take up today's calendar. We only have one bill. It's House Bill 48. Is there a motion on the bill? Motion. We have a motion and a second on the bill. The bill is properly before us. Leader Lamberth, you're recognized on House Bill 48 for a brief explanation. We do have people here that wish to testify. Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a very simple bill. It just sets a maximum size for city councils and metro councils at 20. So it just sets the maximum size of 20. When you look across the country, there are very, very few city councils that are larger than 20 and none that work particularly well for their citizens. So this is just setting a policy for every city and metro in the state.
Thank you, Leader Lamberth. This time, we'd like to go out of session. The chair recognizes Vice Mayor Jim Schulman. Welcome to the committee, sir. And you're recognized. One more try.
Have I got it? It's been a while since I've been over here.
Welcome back, sir, and you're recognized for 3 minutes on the bill.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee. I would like to introduce a couple of council members that I have in the audience. Councilmember John Rutherford is behind me to my right, and Councilmember Courtney Johnston is behind me to the left. And my council director is Margaret Darby, and she's right behind me, so if I make a mistake, she can hit me over the head. There is a history to the reason that the Metro Council of Nashville and Davidson County are at 40 members. So the Tennessee General Assembly created by statute the ability to create a metropolitan form of government. In TCA Section 7-2-108, the charter of a metropolitan government is required to contain, and I quote, the size, method of election, qualification for holding office, term of office, and procedures on the Metropolitan Council. Nashville and Davidson County did that. It followed the law and created its own government. Metro Council has been at 40 members in Nashville since April of 1963, when the consolidated government came into being. In 2015, there was an effort to reduce the size of the council to 27 members. Some people will tell you it was tied to an increase in term limits to 3 terms. That proposal before the city of Nashville and Davidson County was rejected. 62% of the voters rejected that proposal. So the people of Nashville and Davidson County originally voted for 40. That's what we started with. We revoted and kept it at 40. And the people, I know this is a question that's coming before everyone, but obviously people believe that we can function at 40. We're still at 40. There are different reasons for the 40. But one thing that was in the early 60s, and is still certain, we want to make sure that we provide a government that represents all the people in Nashville and Davidson County. We want it to be equitable, and we want equitable minority representation, and we still do. We live in America where the people decide their government, they elect us to serve them, and can vote to remove us. In the case of the formation of the Metropolitan Government in Nashville and Davidson County, the people voted as to how they wanted their government to be formed. We believe that if they want it changed, they should be the ones to decide. These are my last quick comments. There is obviously with this thing strong possibilities for litigation if the bill goes through as it is, over extending terms, changing another entity's governing structure, denying voters with the right to have a say in how they are governed. Last comment, excuse me, with a possible year of council members' terms being extended by 1 year, which is what this part of this bill does, that may turn out to be illegal and unconstitutional. If the terms are extended and it does turn out to be illegal, then anything we pass during that year may be illegal. Last sentence, and then I'll be quiet. Nashville is obviously strongly moving ahead economically, creating uncertainty about the validity of actions taken within the halls of our city government, whether bills are illegal, whether you can't zone, whether you can do development or not.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you
okay.
for your testimony and comment. At this time, the chair would like to recognize Mr. Stephen Puckett. He requested to speak before the committee. Is Mr. Puckett available? Is Mr. Puckett available? If you'll come forward, sir. Have a seat, and if you will introduce yourself to the committee, then you'll be recognized to speak 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Stephen Puckett. I'm a resident of Hendersonville, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. I am speaking in opposition to this on the principled stance that the representation or the matter of representation with local government should be a matter between the government and its own taxpayers, the local taxpayers, as they are the ones that have to pay the bills for that representation. And in fact, in Hendersonville, we actually had a similar discussion about this because of about limiting or reducing size of government because due to redistricting and our city being grandfathered, if we redistricted in a certain way, we were going to actually lose representation because of our grandfathering, and we had that discussion, and it was ironic because the suggestion of reducing representation as making smaller government was rejected across the board, from the most left-wing individuals to the MAGA folks, the most far right. We stood together united saying that when it comes to representation, that is not the type of smaller government that we're defining as. And so for a lot of people, they felt like it was a bait and switch to reduce government, bills like this to reduce the size of government, which this is for metro governments. In fact, one of the things I do appreciate from the sponsor was that in announcing this bill, he actually unwittingly admitted that if a government went larger than 20, apparently that's close enough to the people that the moneyed powers of the state can't buy them off or something like that. But and so I appreciate him putting that out there because I know all the other cities will probably feel that way. We'll take notice of that. But at the end of the day, close is key. I appreciate that. Ultimately, we know that this is being concerned because of what happened with the RNC. I am a bit surprised that that the leaders of our state would be punishing Nashville for refusing to provide a second-rate event when I would think that they would want to provide their national party with the best event, and which is what Nashville offered as an alternative because they were worried about a repeat of something like the Christmas Day bombings. That's what was front of mind when I spoke with them. And so they wanted to give the best. And so this undermines the principle of local representation being decided by the people who function. We don't need to reduce our local government to nothing more than a complaint office, an administrative complaint office for the state, because the pattern and behavior of our General Assembly has been to reduce the power for our local government to the point that it's nothing more than a complaint office, which is the original. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Puckett, for your testimony and comment. This time, we'll go back into session. Leader Lamberth, you are recognized on House Bill 48.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do have an amendment on this bill, drafting code 1889.
Is there a motion on the amendment? Is there a motion and a second on Amendment 1889? Mr. Leader, you're recognized on the amendment, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the amendment, to the mayor's point, and I appreciate Mayor Schulman's testimony, and I've spoken with him before about this issue and some other council members and many folks from Davidson County. It says, after the first section there, the governing body of a municipality may take any action by majority vote of the governing body necessary to implement and facilitate this section, irrespective of any provision of a charter or private act. It, in essence, gives Nashville or any other city that would need to act because of this bill carte blanche to do whatever is necessary by vote to effectuate this chapter.
You've heard the explanation of the amendment. Do any members wish to speak on the amendment? Anyone have a question on the amendment to the sponsor? Are the members ready for the question? Without objection, we're voting on Amendment 1889. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. No. The ayes prevail and the amendment goes forward. We're now back on the bill, House Bill 48. Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just a couple of points for the committee to consider as we look at this. This discussion obviously has been going on for decades. When the Nashville Metro was first permitted by the state, and I say permitted purposefully there because we created these entities. I mean, that is what the state has done over the years. We set the parameters on how city councils and metros can and cannot govern themselves. The decisions they make are theirs. Who they elect, those decisions are theirs. But the broad parameters on what a city council or metro council is allowed to do is set by this body. That's just the way it works. The county commissions are different. Obviously, their sizes are set by the Constitution, but the cities are literally a creation of the state, the city government specifically. In a poll of Davidson County registered voters recently, 773 voters were polled. 55% of them answered in the affirmative to this question. Do you think reducing the size of Metro Council to 20 or fewer members would be good or bad for the city? Again, 55% said that that would be good. When the Metro government was first formed in Nashville, 21 members on the city council is what was proposed. Unfortunately, local politics got in the way, and there's a lot of news coverage from that back then, and they couldn't get it done at 21. So they wound up with 40 as part of a political compromise so that everybody could get a seat. I mean, in essence, everybody that was elected at that time was trying to scramble around to get a seat. That's not good government. Across the nation, only 2 other city councils are larger than Nashville, Chicago and New York City. Not exactly equitable to what Nashville is in size or any other demographic. So I pulled a few other cities that you might find interesting. Maryville has 5 city council members. Johnson City 5, Kingsport 6, Elizabethton 6, Knoxville 9, Gallatin 7, and Hendersonville, which was previously mentioned, has 12. Now, those are all smaller cities than Nashville, so I went a little further than that. We pulled some cities from across the nation. Since there's only 2 that are larger than Nashville, I thought, well, what about cities that are similarly situated? Since Nashville has been the most vocal in opposition to this. And again, I want to be clear, it affects every city because no city can increase beyond 20 if this passes, and anybody over 20 has to shrink down to 20. So Austin, Texas has just over 1 million folks. They have 10 city council members, one of the fastest growing and most prosperous cities in the country right now. San Jose, California has just over 1 million, 10 city council members. Dallas, Texas, 1.3 million, 14 city council members. San Diego, 1.4 million, 9 city council members. And I can go on, even to Memphis, right here in Tennessee. They have 13 city council members. 40 is an exceptional outlier. Anything above 20 just doesn't work well. We've seen it over and over and over again. And to quote one of Metro's own council members, this is from them, not me. We live in a city that is growing at an exponential growth rate, and as a consequence, we need to become much more efficient and effective in government, and large does not always mean good. That's what we're doing here today. It would set a maximum size of 20 council members for any metro or city government. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I stand ready for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Representative McKenzie, you're recognized on the bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the sponsor. As you were laying that out, one thing that I think was glaring, and I'd like to ask you to speak to it, is you kept using the term city, which I agree with you wholeheartedly. 20 folks for a city the size of Knoxville, I think, would be absurd. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about city and county. And you pulled some interesting numbers, and I appreciate you pulling Blount County, because if you pull Blount County, which is city and county, and you add up Maryville, Alcoa, Friendsville, Townsend, Louisville, and Rockford, which I'm sure our chairman is member one of those cities or in and around, plus city council, plus the mayors of each one, you're talking about 53 people. For a county, 135,000 people, which is about 2,500 people per elected official. Whereas you're talking about Nashville, that number goes to 17,000. So I agree with you in terms of how you govern, but I don't know if it was intentional. I'm sure it wasn't. Davidson County, they're responsible for Davidson County. So could you speak to that disparity, using Blount County maybe as an example?
Leader Lamberth.
Sure, absolutely. We were talking about metro and city council sizes here. Again, constitutionally, the counties are a different entity. They're different entities completely. And so the size of county commissions and the size of county governments are simply different, because the metros, I mean, as the mayor eloquently expressed, the metros were created by acts from the state. That's what permits a metro or city council to exist and sets the parameters thereof. So to compare counties and cities is not comparing apples to apples. It's apples to oranges at best. And so we simply don't have the authority to change the size of county commissions. That is set at a prescribed number. I think it has to be under 25.
And it's set in statute. Representative McKenzie, you're recognized for follow-up.
Thank you. And I definitely agree with that, but would you not say that Metro Davidson County has every bit of responsibility of the counties as set by statute? They're a one-off, but in terms of the responsibility that falls under their jurisdiction, it has every bit of the responsibility of education, sheriffs, jails, libraries, health departments, everything like that a county does, plus those cities. So to me, it would be both of those in terms of the overall responsibility of good governance to the people, what I think we're all here to ensure, that we would look at what the overall ability for a city and a county to do. I'm sorry, I didn't know if that was something timing out or what, but I was going to run left if so, but so I apologize.
Just for clarification, it's an answer.
Oh no, I appreciate it. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Chair, but my bottom line question is, a question to you is, does not Metro Davidson County, aren't they charged with all of the responsibilities of any other of the 94 counties in the state of Tennessee?
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
So they are charged with the responsibilities of a metro government. They chose to form themselves into a metro government, and that falls under a specific statutory code that we're changing here. So metro and city councils are different than county governments. So while many cities have responsibilities that counties have and vice versa, and many metros have the responsibilities of both counties and cities, they are by definition metro forms of government. They are different than a county form of government, and they've chosen to go down that road. So it is simply different. I will quote Councilwoman Emily Evans from 2015 in stating, this is her words, not mine, "It's near impossible to educate the majority of your colleagues on anything of complexity or anything pretty deep like transit, like affordable housing. There's a reason that we haven't made any progress on those issues." It's not just me. There have been many, many frustrated Tennesseans over the years at the size of the Nashville City Council. And again, to reiterate, this affects all city councils and all metros throughout the state. None of them should ever go above 20 because all of these issues are pretty obvious once you go above that size.
Representative McKenzie, if you allow the chair to sign the floor to another, and I will come back to you for a second time. Chairman Holtzclaw, you're recognized on the bill, sir.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Leader, for bringing HB 48. Again, my initial question was going to be, how many members, did Memphis and Knoxville have? And Nashville has more than double that, so I find that pretty amazing. But I appreciate you bringing the bill. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Representative McKenzie, you're recognized for the second time on the bill, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I'm confused with a couple of areas that we're talking about. This seems to be an efficiency conversation. Is that where we are? Was that the genesis of the reason for bringing this bill forward? Leader
Lambert.
Absolutely. Again, what we've seen throughout the country is best practices are to have city councils and metro councils that are under 20. They represent more diverse areas. They're able to work together toward common goals for a city. They're able to simply coalesce around larger projects and ideas in a way that is not chaotic. And so, unfortunately, what we've seen in some of these larger city councils, and again, the only two that I can give an example that are larger than Nashville Metro is New York and Chicago. And again, not the most functional of cities that would be examples. Sure, all of these cities can get some stuff right and do some good things, but it is unfortunately like them pushing a boulder uphill through mud. I mean, it's just very difficult for councils of that size. That's the reason why it is good policy, and it is up to us to set that policy so that no city council would ever go beyond 20 members.
And McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you. And again, in your verbiage and vernacular, you keep saying city. Cook County does a lot of its responsibility. The city, and I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. 24 city council of any size is preposterous. But that's not where Nashville is. Nashville has jails. If I'm looking at Knox County, where I'm from, we have those same. We could pull a quote saying that we need help with affordable housing, we need help with homeless problem, we need those things. So I wouldn't set Nashville apart in saying that that's why they have it. And I think that was your quote of the lady you spoke to. But the county has responsibilities. Knox County, Sumner County, though, all those counties. Metro Davidson County has all of those, plus the affairs of the city. And just to give you another example, if you look at Williamson County, for example, they have 69 total to handle the affairs, the governmental affairs, what goes on in that small county in terms of population. What's 250,000 people, but to handle that 69 compared to 41 for Metro Davidson County. So it sounds like we're talking cities. So if we're talking cities, okay, you can add up all of these cities and say something, but there's a function that the county does, that Davidson County is doing, and I don't think you're taking into account that. So again, my question to you is, what's inefficient? If you look at the pure numbers, the raw numbers, even when you look at Knox or Shelby, Metro Nashville per elected official is much more efficient than all of these combined governments.
Leader Lambert.
Had they chosen to have multiple different cities within a county and have a county government and multiple city governments, they would be smaller, the entities that we are talking about. Nashville and Davidson County chose under state law to form a metro. So when they did that, they fall into a separate category. So that category is governed by statute. And so while you are trying to add up city governments and county governments to come to some sort of conglomerate number, those separate entities all work with one another, but they make their decisions independent of each other. And that is an efficient process because it is a smaller group of individuals that, again, can coalesce around ideas in a way that is simply more effective and efficient. That's why throughout the entire nation, this just simply isn't done. You don't see cities or metros or councils go beyond the size of about 20. It's simply good public policy. So in these counties that have not chosen to go metro, they do have city councils and county commissions that act independently and collectively together, but their decisions and their votes are done within each of those bodies. When a metro forms under our state law, they form into one entity. And that is governed in a different way than the counties are. So it's simply, with all due respect, again, it's not even analogous to what we're talking about here today. I know you've tried to make an analysis, but with all due respect, it just isn't.
Representative McKenzie.
And I'll have two quicker questions. I'll say to you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for allowing me to ask these questions. You had an example, a poll. I would say extremely unscientific because it's only 773 people out of 715,000. But that poll indicated that I guess those people at a 50-something% were not in favor of a metro government. But what say you about the 2015 election, where almost 2/3 of the voters asked to keep the number at 40?
Leader Lamberth.
Yeah, they really didn't want to extend their term limits. I don't know who all was on the council at that time, but the question put to the voters is whether or not they would add a third term to the term limits. When you mix that with whether or not to reduce the council, again, that was a referendum about term limits. Sure, there was a council question and council size question as well, but, and I'm afraid you may have misstated the poll, which 773 voters is a pretty decent poll through most of the polling that I've seen out there, but be that as it may, 55% said that yes, they support 20 or fewer. We're also sitting at maximum size. I'll be quite frank, given the size of other cities that we see in other states, and I didn't choose some of the larger ones that are out there, but very few of those go beyond 15. We're setting a maximum of 20 for cities and metro councils. We're not encouraging them to hit 20. If Nashville or any other city chooses to have less than 20, fine, that's great. How they redistrict, how many at large, whether or not the vice mayor is a voting member, whether or not, many of these issues are all up to the cities and the metros as to how they wish to do this. That's their call. We're just setting a policy of nobody goes over 20.
Representative McKenzie.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my final question on this issue is, and the vice mayor spoke to it, and that is, in terms of minority representation, extremely important, codified in law, and just the right thing to do, bottom line, in not just my opinion, but period. Can you fathom any way that at the end of this exercise, the minority community will be represented in a way as equal or better than they are now? And I'd like to hear some anecdotal, at least evidence of that.
Leader Lamberth.
Yes, sir. Every other city that I've mentioned is a perfect example of, or many of them, of how to make sure that minority communities are well represented. When you have councils that go above 20, that's extremely difficult to do, but we need to watch very closely how the redistricting is done in Nashville. If Nashville at this point is the only entity that I know that would need to shrink, there may be others out there. They're the only ones that have reached out. So either others don't have an objection to it or they're not larger than 20 currently. But again, we're setting a maximum so they can't ever go above that. But any entity that, would have to shrink down, I think we need to watch very closely. And I think that the laws and case law that are out there on redistricting, we all just went through that process, would ensure legally that minority representation must be maintained. And if for some reason any city doesn't follow those laws, it will be to their own peril. That minority representation must be maintained under law and under the case law. But that comes to redistricting. I mean, that's out of our hands. That's up to each one of these cities on how they do that.
Representative Wright, you're recognized. Vice Chairman Wright, you're recognized. Excuse me, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd move previous question.
Previous question been moved. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. Previous question. All in favor of previous question say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Previous question carries. We're now voting on House Bill 48 as amended. All members voting for moving this forward say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. No. The ayes prevail. House Bill 48 as amended moves to the next available calendar in local government.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Thank you, sponsor.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We have introduced the members of the subcommittee, and at this time, we did move the business ahead of some housekeeping, so we wouldn't keep folks here for an extended period of time. So at this time, I would like to go over the Rules and Procedures of the House Local Government Committee, Subcommittee on Cities and Counties. Unless notified otherwise, this subcommittee will meet each Wednesday at 3:30 Central Time in House Hearing Room 2. Members wanting to place a bill on notice will do so via our online portal. Bill notices must be turned in by 3 p.m. each Wednesday in order to be heard the following week. 3:30 p.m. Amendments must be submitted electronically to the House Government Committee email address. Amendments must be signed by the sponsor of the amendment. Amendments must be filed by 10 a.m. on Tuesday before this subcommittee meets. No verbal or untimely filed amendments will be considered. Bills passed by the subcommittee will automatically be placed on the next available full committee calendar unless the committee receives a written request from the sponsor to set another hearing date or at the discretion of the chair. Guest speakers need to be pre-approved by the chair no later than 24 hours in advance. When there are several individuals on the list to speak on an issue, the chair may impose a limit for testimony and comments. If you are doing a presentation or presenting a bill, no props may be used. Caption bills must be approved by the Speaker's office before being heard in the committee. Also, if a bill opens up a substantial portion of TCA, the sponsor must agree to send this back to committee if the bill passes and is amended on the House floor. Be respectful and follow proper decorum of all committee members, bill sponsors, members of the public, committee staff during the subcommittee meeting. Please turn off your cell phone or put them on silent while in committee. Also limit texting and internet browsing while hearing testimony before this committee. No live streaming or recording will be allowed by members without at least 24-hour notice prior approval from the chair. Documents, handouts, or PowerPoint presentations material also will require 24-hour notice to the chair. Guests and members of the public will be allowed to live stream or record as long as it does not disturb the subcommittee meeting. To be consistent with other House committees, hard copies will no longer be distributed to your office. Committee calendars, e-packs, and amendment packs will be distributed to your office electronically via email each week rather than being delivered by hand. I would also point out that all of these documents will be available to you via your online member dashboard. If you prefer hard copy, please ask your assistant to print one out for you. In addition, in accordance with House Rule 83, any bill or resolution may only be calendared 3 times. If on the third calendar the bill is not reported out of the committee, the bill will be placed on a special calendar by the chair to be published on the final calendar. If at any juncture the bill is not reported out of the committee, then it shall be returned to the clerk's desk. Sponsors may request a roll call vote prior to any vote. That is, the sponsor may request a roll call vote prior to any vote. 3 members of the committee may request a roll call vote. The chairman can request a roll call vote at any time. That concludes the explanation of our subcommittee rules. If any member has questions, do not hesitate to reach out to my office or Chairman John Crawford's office. Are there any announcements at this time? Seeing no one seeking the floor, without objection, we'll stand adjourned. Hearing no objection, we adjourn. Thank you.